to all of you today. I seek all of your blessings to be able to discuss Srimad Bhagavatam with you. And if there are any mistakes, please do correct me. Thank you very much again for giving me the opportunity. So I'll just read the text, Mataji. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Narayanam Namaskritam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasim Tato Jayamudhirat Ashtapashya Bhatreshu Nityam Bhagavate Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naishtaki. Ahastan, just one of this. Ahastani Shahastanam Apadani Chatushpadam Falguni Tatra Mahatam Jivo Jivasya Jivanam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Those who are devoid of hands are prey for those who have hands. Those devoid of legs are prey for the four-legged. The weak are the subsistence of the strong, and the general rule holds that one living being is food for another. Purport: a systematic law of subsistence in the struggle for existence is there by the supreme will, and there is no escape for anyone by any amount of planning. The living beings who have come to the material world against the will of the Supreme Being are under the control of a supreme power called Maya Shakti, the deputed agent of the Lord. And this Daiva Maya is meant to pinch the conditioned souls by threefold miseries, one of which is explained here in this verse. The weak are the subsistence of the strong. No one is strong enough to protect himself from the onslaught of a stronger, and by the will of the Lord there are systematic, the stronger and the strongest. There is nothing to be lamented if a tiger eats a weaker animal, including a man, because that is the law of the Supreme Lord. But although the law states that a human being must subsist on another living being, there is a law of good sense also, for the human being is meant to obey the laws of the scriptures. This is impossible for other animals. The human being is meant for self-realization, and for that purpose he is not to eat anything which is not first offered to the Lord. The Lord accepts from his devotees all kinds of food preparations made of vegetables, fruits, leaves, and grains. Fruits, leaves, and milk in different varieties can be offered to the Lord, and after the Lord accepts the foodstuff, the devotee can partake of the prasada, by which all suffering in the struggle for existence will be gradually mitigated. This is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.26. Even those who are accustomed to eat animals can offer foodstuff not to the Lord directly, but to an agent of the Lord under certain conditions of religious rites. Injunctions of the scriptures are meant not to encourage the eaters of animals, but to restrict them by regulative principles. The living being is the source of subsistence for other stronger living beings. No one should be very anxious for his subsistence in any circumstances, because there are living beings everywhere, and no living being starves for want of food at any place. Maharaja Yudhishthira is advised by Narada not to worry about his uncle's suffering for want of food, but they could live on vegetables available in the jungles as prasada of the Supreme Lord, and thus realize the path of salvation. Exploitation of the weaker living being by the stronger is the natural law of existence. There is always an attempt to devour the weak in different kingdoms of living beings. There is no possibility of checking this tendency by an artificial means under material conditions. It can be checked only by awakening the spiritual sense of the human being by practice of spiritual regulations. The spiritual regulative principles, however, do not allow a man to slaughter weaker animals on one side and teach others peaceful coexistence. If a man does not allow the animals peaceful coexistence, how can he expect peaceful existence in human society? The blind leaders must therefore understand the Supreme Being and then try to implement the kingdom of God. The kingdom of God, or Ramarajya, is impossible without the awakening of God consciousness in the mass mind of the people of the world. ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो कृष्णपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्तस्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे विशेषशून्यवादी तदेशतारिणे यस्य कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Thank you again, Mataji's and Prabhuji's, for giving me this opportunity. So we are talking about Narad Muni giving advice to Yudhishthira Maharaj. So just to look into, very quickly looking into the backdrop of the setting leading on to verse 47. So we have chapter 13, starting with, Vidur returning to Yudhishthira Maharaj's kingdom. He was greeted with open arms by everybody because he was such a loved person and people looked up to him. And Vidur had just returned after meeting Maitri Muni and has gained more wisdom from him. And we see how Vidur, throughout his life, he had always, despite being the son of a Shudra, he is actually a partial incarnation of Dharmaraj or Yamaraj. And throughout his life, he wanted to rectify the what his brother Dhritarashtra had been doing and had been constantly telling him not to do what he was doing against the Pandavas. But unfortunately, he was not able to do that. And now that all the sons of all the Kauravas had been killed, there was a whole battle of destruction with so many lives lost. Everything was lost. And Vidur, seeing Dhritarashtra still enjoying and cannot be able to leave the material existence and material enjoyments, Vidur once again tries to convince Dhritarashtra by saying, look, you are still clutching on to this material body, but you have to be aware of Kala, or the eternal time. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, I am Samaya, I am Kala, I am the time. So everything is in the control of the Lord. And no matter how much you hold on to this body, this will deteriorate with time. So now that you have lost everything in your life, why do you still want to live your life? Why not live the rest of your life just in devotion rather than enjoying in the palace of Yudhishthira Maharaj? So this time, and Vidur, obviously, he did say these things with respect, but there was also attached. He spoke to Dhritarashtra not out of disrespect, the time to leave everything and devote the rest of the life to Krishna Bhakti. So this time, Dhritarashtra is convinced, and we see in the middle of the night, Dhritarashtra, along with his wife Gandhari and Vidur, leaving the palace of Yudhishthira. And then the following morning, Yudhishthira Maharaj, he wakes up and he goes to the palace to pay his respects to the elders, and he finds the palace empty and with the elders, with his uncles missing and Gandhari missing. And he was beside himself with grief. he just could not control his grief, because he was just so agitated as to what is happening to his uncles, especially, I mean, Vidura, obviously, because he was so much loved, but also for Dhritarashtra, and concerned about what they are eating, as and he was lamenting. And then we have Narad Muni coming and then talking to Yudhishthira and trying to pacify him. So this is the background of what leads us onto this text. But there are just so many things. I mean, one thing which fascinates me whenever I try to understand any little bit of Shastra is that no matter what subject they talk about, whether it's the fighting or whether it's, the devotees or the demons or anything they talk about, there is all the element of caring and loving and bhakti somewhere embedded between the lines in all the verses. And we see the same over here as well. It starts with Narad Muni telling Yudhishthira Maharaj, do not worry about them, okay? Do not worry. Because again, Narad Muni reminds Yudhishthira that they are under the influence of Maya, of Kala, of karma, of gunas. So everything is, as soon as a living entity comes into this world, their entire life is controlled by the Lord. Now, we might say that no, the living entities, they do have free will. They are given the free will by the Lord to do what they want to do, which is true, which is definitely true, but only true to a certain extent. What the living entities, the material body that they are born in, is completely governed by what the karma of that living entity has been in the past, and what that living entity's thoughts were right at the end of its life in the previous life. So it depends on the karma, the material body that one gets depends on one's karma. And as time goes on, as Kala proceeds, which is nothing, which is no one but the Lord, more and more karma is done. And this karma, the more karma is done by the choices that is given to the living entities. So for each and every situation in life, we are given choices to choose. We can choose the way, the right way, or the wrong way, or sometimes there's also a middle way. The choices a living entity makes is based on one's gunas, on whether one is in sattva guna, rajas guna, or tapa guna. So that dictates the type of action that he chooses to do. So yes, he has been given the free will, but he's been given the free will to make the choice of doing the right or the wrong, of choosing devotion or choosing non-devotion, of being compassionate and loving towards others, or being completely opposite to that. So that type of free will is given to the living entities. But as to what happens in the whole circle of life of entity is completely in the hands of the Lord. So with time, the living entity, when it has been born, the absolute truth is that it is also going to come to, its life is also going to come to an end. And all of that is unavoidable. So Narad Muni talks about all of these shastras to Yudhishthira Maharaj, and we know when someone is very unhappy or very sad, it is fine to talk shastras to them, but at the same time, we have to understand that not all the time people do understand. So then Narad Muni starts giving examples, and we look into examples he gives of food over here. But even before we go that, if we take if we stop for a bit and look into uh, the fact that Yudhishthir Maharaj is so overcome with grief for an uncle who had wronged him so much over the years. And he was, and we go back to the point around caring. Now, you can only care for a person who you love. You don't care for a person who you do not love. And in every step of the Bhagavatam or the Shastras, we see through the various characters how there is caring in one way or the other, and how the Shastras are trying to teach us how to go towards that caring, that loving, or the supreme love of bhakti or Krishna prem. In Yudhishthir Maharaj caring or his love for Dhritarashtra, and we see in his character, which comes across as such a diverse character from Dhritarashtra. I mean, Yudhishthir Maharaj was someone so pious, wouldn't even call Duryodhana by his name, because Duryodhana, Dur means bad. So he wouldn't even call Duryodhana as Duryodhana. Does anyone know what he used to call Duryodhana as? He used to call Duryodhana as Suryodhana. Su means good. So whenever he called Duryodhana, he would call him as Suryodhana, so a very good warrior. So that is Yudhishthir Maharaj. We see Yudhishthir Maharaj always trying to think about others and the least about himself. And we see on the hand Dhritarashtra so self-centered, all the time thinking about himself. And as we know, his blindness was not just physical blindness, it was blindness in his mind, of intelligence, of his consciousness. Because he was blind to this, he was blind to caring. He cared only the wrong for his sons who were doing wrong. And he was very, very self-centered, as opposed to a complete non-self-centered attitude of Yudhishthir Maharaj. And Shastras describe that when we talk about such characters who are very, very self-centered, they talk about them for us to learn not to be that. And they define that there are three things that people do when they are very egoistic or very self-centered. First of all, they think they are the center of attraction. So we see sometimes when we have any festivals, people dress up a lot. They dress up so much as if, it is their fest. It's not Janmashtami. It's not Krishna's birthday. Temple, and they will, they will walk around like a peacock, forgetting that nobody's looking at them, not even their own children or husband or wife, and everyone's actually gravitating towards the altar to see Krishna and Radha Krishna. So they always think them to be the center of attraction. Secondly, they always try to do something which attracts attraction towards them. So say, for example, everybody is quiet and they would suddenly say something very loudly, or they would suddenly do something which is something that's so different to what is the expected or what is the norm, that would attract attention towards them. And thirdly, they are just proud and very egoistic in nature. And we find all of this in Dhritarashtra, where he thinks that he is the best and he deserves to be the king. or his sons deserve to be the king. Everybody expected him to be compassionate towards the fatherless Pandavas, and yet he did exactly the opposite, you know. And even worse, he did that slyly. In the open, it looked like, yes, he was making a house for them, he was building a palace for them, whereas, you know, behind closed doors, we know he was actually planning to kill them. So he did something completely different to what is expected of him, because he was so self-centered. And because his ego did not allow him to understand caring for the good or loving the good. And his caring and loving was limited only to the wrong and the wrongdoing and the wrongdoers. Whereas in Yudhishthira, we see caring is towards anybody. So he goes out, when he was asked to go out to the kingdom and find someone who is faultless, he just comes back and says that he's the only one with everybody else is faultless. So his caring is completely for the others. And that is the reason we see that Narad Muni is having to explain to him so many times that do not worry about your uncles, they are fine. And this is only possible when you're talking to a person who by default is of a nature who thinks only of others, even all the time before he thinks about himself. So once, what happened when Krishna was little, Nanda Maharaj was going out to graze the cows. And he was just calling Krishna, "Oh, Krishna, are you coming with me? I'm just going out to graze the cows. Are you coming with me?" And then Krishna, yeah, I will. Just wait for me. I'm coming along. And then Yashoda mother was just running after Krishna. Krishna, don't go out like this. Just wear these padukas. Just wear something on your feet, or else your feet will get soily, dirt, or you'll get hurt. From your feet. Please wear this. And little Krishna says, okay, I will only wear it if you make padukas for all those. They have 4 feet, and for each you have to make padukas, and only then will I wear padukas and go out to graze the cows. So Yashoda mother looked at him and then said, okay, you go out bare feet. You do whatever you want to do. Just go out bare feet. I'm not taking care of you. Okay? If you come back soiled feet, you wash your own feet and you take care of yourself. Okay? So Yashoda mother, we see the care over here. Yashoda mother was able, very, very care, loving, afraid that his baby Krishna was going to hurt his feet. The Lord of the entire universe hurting his little feet by the blades of the grass. So Yashoda mother was afraid of that. And yet, when Krishna demanded padukas for the cows, she was able to tell him off, as a mother would do, because the mother cares for a child enough to scold the child and make the child see the right from the wrong. So we see the informality in this caring, in this loving. There is no restrictions. Anyone can say anything to anybody. So just as Krishna was able to demand from Yashoda mother, so also Yashoda mother was able to tell him off and say, you go out, you do whatever you want to do, and come back with your soiled feet, and you wash your feet. I'm not doing anything. So we see the love that Krishna Bhakti allows us, and Krishna gives us examples through this. And we see the same in Yudhishthira Maharaj caring for his elders and loving his elders, although again, as we discussed, there is a difference in loving in every stage, in every relationship that we find in the Bhagavatam. So whereas Yudhishthira Maharaj's love for his uncle might be a bit more formal than we find in Yashoda Mother, and to be honest, a lot more formal than what we find between Yashoda Mother and Nanda Maharaj. So, this is what we see in terms of caring. The other very interesting thing coming on to this verse, which we get to see, is that, you know, the time when Dhritarashtra, Vidura, and Gandhari left the palace, they left in the middle of the night. Now, today is Ram Navami, a very, very auspicious day. And when does the Lord appear? Does he appear at night, or does he appear during the day?
Midday.
He appears at midday when the sun is in the brightest. Okay, and Ram, he's also called the Maryada Purush. So Krishna, in his avatar as Ram, comes as the perfect man, as the ideal man, as someone whose qualities we should look up to and learn from, because Krishna wanted us through Ram. So he comes, so we see, because he wanted to teach us, he comes at a perfect time of, you know, during midday, when the sun is at the brightest, it's light, and he comes on Navami. Why is Navami so special? Why is Navami called the perfect day? And both Ram and Sita Mother, they were both born on Navami, just as we have Krishna and Radharani, both born on Ashtami. Similarly, we have Ram and Sita Mother, both being born on Navami. And Navami is the most perfect day. Does anyone know why? No? Okay, so now we have Ekadashi, where people fast. Now, in the Shastras, there are certain relaxations for people not able to keep fast during Ekadasi. For some reason, not because, you know, it's my friend's birthday, I want to have a cake today, so let me keep fasting tomorrow and let me enjoy the cake today. Not for that, but say someone is traveling, also for, you know, illness, or for some reason, if someone is not able to keep Ekadasi on the dedicated day, they are able to fast on the following day, or the following day, or the following, you know, or either on Dwadashi or Trayadashi, Chaturdashi. So they're able to do that on the following days. And then you break fast on the day after you keep the fasting. And there is the opportunity to do that. But for Navami, there is no opportunity to do that. So if you are not able to, first of all, the Lord is so compassionate. He's born midday, so you only have to fast until midday. And then if you are not able to fast on Navami, you decide on fasting on Dashami, and you do that, you won't be able to do that, because then you have to break your fast on Ekadasi, which is again a fasting day, and you're not able to do that. So that is the reason Navami is called to be the perfect day, because it's the only day where you have to stick to your fasting. And you have to, you know, perform all your devotional rites and, you know, your pujas, or and your worship, and your show your devotion towards the Lord the most. Nowadays, people hardly keep to it, but in the earlier days, people did keep to it. And there was a reason as to why we see the Lord's coming in his various incarnations, and the Tithi they were born in is so very important. So we see Lord Ram, being the perfect, the ideal Purusha, the Maryada Purusha, being born on the perfect day, in a perfect time. Whereas we see someone like Dhritarashtra, who has led his whole entire life being blind and oblivious to goodness, but being very much on the side of the wrong, leaving the palace of goodness in the dark of the night. But the only plus side of all of that was that he had Vidura with him, and they were leaving to get to devote the rest of their lives towards devotion. So there was a positive to even that, and that teaches us that, you know, no matter how dark a situation we are in, there is always light at the end of the day. And that is what Narad Muni is telling Yudhishthira as well. Do not worry about your uncles and your aunt, because the whole thing is devised by the Lord, and the Lord takes care of everybody. And just one last point about caring, and how the Lord cares before we move on to other things. So there was this very pious man who lived in Vrindavan, and he used to read the Srimad Bhagavatam in front of Radharaman in the temple every single day. And he did that for 60 years. Every single day he would read it. And every day he would read one full chapter to Radharaman. And then one day he was getting old, and then one day he was tired and his eyesight was failing a bit. And obviously we didn't have glasses on those times. So his eyesight was failing a bit. And he asked his son to read Srimad Bhagavatam to Radharaman on the day. So the book they had, so because he used to read each chapter each day, he used to put a bookmark in it. And when he finished reading on that particular day, the bookmark was on the same chapter. And he closed the book because he knew, tomorrow I'm going to ask my son to read it. And because he knew he wouldn't be reading it the following day, he did not move the bookmark to the following chapter. So what happened was the following day, the son came and read the same chapter to Radharaman. At night, Radharaman came in the dreams of this man and said, "Do you know what? Your son is lovely. He did read it very nicely. Can you please come and read it tomorrow? I want you to read it. I don't want anybody else to read it. You can read wrong words. It doesn't matter. But I just want you to read it." Okay? And that is because Krishna looks at the bhav, the feelings with which we pray to him. It is not what we offer to him. As Prabhupada mentioned in the purport, food is provided to everybody. One does not have to, cook delicious food for Krishna every single day. In Bhagavad Gita 9.26, he just mentions 4 things. He says, Patram, Phalam, Pushpam, and Toyam. Okay, a fruit, a leaf, a flower, and some water. But if you offer it to me with bhakti, if a bhakta offers it to me with bhakti or love and care, that is what I see. Okay, so it doesn't matter what is offered to me, but how it is offered to me matters a lot. So, so we see Narad Muni telling Yudhishthira that this world is under the clutches of Maya Devi. And Maya Devi is so powerful. We cannot, being a human being, we cannot escape Maya Devi, because Maya Devi is the Lord's own Shakti, Lord's own external Shakti. And through Maya Devi, we are engaged and we have to succumb to the three miseries of life. Can anyone tell me what the three miseries of life are?
Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik.
Yes, Adhyatmic meaning the miseries we bring onto ourselves through our own mind and body. Adiphotic, miseries brought to us through other people. And Adidaivic, the miseries which come to us, which are beyond our control. For example, natural calamities of life. So, and we see again, we go to karma, people of certain karma, they are grouped together and they are all on the same place at one time, or all on the same plane, which is going to not reach its destination safely. And that was destined through their karma, and Krishna put them in together. That just didn't happen randomly. We see people or relatives of people of similar karma being born as relatives to each other, or being friends with each other, or people who we have either been friends with in previous lives, or either with whom we've had enmity in previous lives. Somehow they are put together in this life, so that they interact in some way in this life. And whatever was left, whether someone had been wronged or someone had been very good to a person, whatever was the past karma, we see in this birth people interacting in that way to balance that karma. So, you either do good to the person who did good to you, or you do bad to the person who did bad to you. And it could be in the same life. It doesn't have to be from previous life. Now it says that we are all under the clutches of Maya Devi, and we all have to go through these three miseries of life. But the Lord provides food for every single person or every single living entity. And that is the way the Lord has created his creation. He did not, we've been talking about loving and caring so long. The Lord loves his creatures. The Lord does not leave his creatures to perish. Okay, despite the fact that one may have wronged, out of his ego, has come down and wanted to lord and wanted to live freely. Despite all of that, the Lord still loves his living entities infinitely, and so he provides everything, whether it is for the ant or whether it is for an elephant who eats a lot. He provides food for every single living entity in his creation. So please do not worry, Yudhishthira. And he says that, just as there is the stronger and the weaker. The Lord has created the creations in that way. There are the weaker beings and there are the stronger beings. And there is nothing to lament about if the stronger takes advantage of the weaker in the animal kingdom. It is the natural law. Okay, so you see, for a tiger to survive, it will have to kill another animal which is not as strong as the tiger. You see big fish eating other fish, smaller fish. Okay, so it is the natural law of evolution. The stronger always takes advantage of the weaker. And that is why it is mentioned that, someone who has hands will take advantage of someone who does not have hands. Someone who has legs will take advantage of someone who does not have legs. So do not worry about this. Even in trees, you have some trees which actually trap animals. They open up, and then when the insects come and sit on their leaf, they close and they trap insects that way. So even in trees, that happens, and that is the natural way. So for every single living entity to survive, they have been provided food by the Lord. However, when it comes to the human being, that does not apply, because the human beings are not just born for eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. That is what every single living entity does: eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. But the human beings have been given something extra. The human beings have been given the mind and the intellect and the consciousness to be able to think and make the choice and understand the choice of right and wrong. So from the human beings, the Lord does not expect human beings to kill other human beings, despite the fact that they might be stronger than other human beings. So in other words, what the Shastras are telling us is that do not kill animals to satisfy your own hunger. Okay, there is enough other things. The Lord in the Gita has said only, leaves, and, there are different vegetables, leaves, fruits. These are things which you can eat. You do not have to kill other animals. And there was this king called Ranjit Singh. Has anyone heard about Ranjit Singh? The very pious King Ranjit Singh. So he lived a few centuries ago, and he was very pious. He was Sikh, but he was very, very compassionate towards all religions. And just like Lord Ram, who used to send messengers out in his kingdom to find out about how things are going, and those messengers used to come back and report to Lord Ram, whether people are happy or not happy, and that is how Lord Ram even came to know about that one person was not happy about Mother Sita's character, and that the whole situation of Mother Sita being taken away from Lord Ram, or Lord Ram taking Mother Sita to somewhere else and away from him, because one person in his kingdom still had doubts about Mother Sita's character after being with Ravana for such a long time. So just like what Lord Ram used to do that, even Ranjit Singh, the king, used to send messengers out. And then one day, one of his messengers came back to say, I saw something very strange today. And I saw a cow or a buffalo who has horns stuck in between two rails, two iron rails. And he wanted to go through it, and his body is stuck. And there are people gathered around him, although they are trying to pull him out, but they are pulling him, and they are hurting the animal more. And the animal is yelling because it's being hurt, being pulled. And one person even said, oh, cut the animal into half, or cut his horns, or cut his, just maybe the horns are sticking out too much, and just cut the horns, and maybe you'll be able to, bring the animal through the rod. And Ranjit Singh went there and said, how very strange. Nobody thought about cutting the rails. And the first thing people were talking about, the first thing they did was pull the animal, which hurt the animal. And the second thing they were talking about, cutting its horns, hurting the animal, rather than cutting the rails. and releasing the animal. So we see in human nature nowadays, there is this propensity to harm others. People throughout the ages, and especially coming down into Kali Yuga, people have become more and more less caring, less loving, less compassionate. We even see in Lord Ram's time, Ravana was a great devotee. He was a huge devotee of Lord Shiva, and yet we see the demoniac side to him, how he used to, he was of a very degraded character. He didn't respect women at all. He fought with people, he raped women, and he did all kinds of wrong things. And yet, on another hand, he was such a great devotee of Lord Shiva that when Lord Shiva built his palace on Mount Kailash, he called Ravana to do his Griha Pravesh because Ravana was a Brahmin. So that he was that big a devotee. But yet we see the Lord does not feel compassionate to people who are not compassionate to other living entities. And we see the downfall of Ravana came through Hanuman, who was no one but a partial incarnation of Lord Shiva himself. Similarly, throughout the ages, the Lord has tried to teach us through the Shastras that be compassionate towards other living beings. And he's telling us now in the Kali Yuga that, if possible, or not, do not kill other animals to satisfy your own hunger. There are about 800,000 cows killed every single day. There are about 5 billion just cows killed every single year, and leave apart, other cattle or chicken. So this is what is happening. But the caveat is, the purport says that if you are not able to give up meat eating immediately, or if you offer it, you can offer it to demigods. Like sometimes meat is offered to Mother Kali because she is Mother Shakti in the Kali form, in the destruction form. So you can offer that to Mother Kali. But there are rules and regulations around that as well. You cannot just cut an animal. You immediately incur bad karma by doing that. And if you kill an animal, there are so many rules of how, you need to, the Brahmin who does the cuts the animal or sacrifices the animal has to whisper into the animal's ears that in the next life they'll be killed by the animal in whichever body they are born in. And this is only one of the rules. There are so many other rules. But if one is not able to give up meat immediately, then maybe offer it to the demigods with the intention that, the demigods ultimately they're also bhaktas or devotees of the Lord. And by praying to the demigod, slowly they will take you towards Lord Krishna and make you give up the meat. And I can say that from my own experience. I was a very, very big meat eater. I used to offer my prayers to lots of demigods, not realizing at the time what the difference is between Lord Krishna and the demigods. And I kind of feel that slowly the demigods took me towards Krishna, took me towards, giving up meat so much, completely, so much so that, I don't even think about or imagine about meat eating nowadays. After leaving meat eating, but that's quite a few years ago now. then Narad says, so don't worry. The Dhritarashtra, Yudhishthira, Vidura, and Gandhari, they are in the forest. They are surrounded by leaves and fruits and vegetables, and they will be able to offer that to the Lord and accept that as prasad and have the food. So it's better not to worry about them so much. The main thing that really strikes me in the whole of Prabhupada's purport in this verse is that he says that when he advises that, when we are advised not and to satisfy our own hunger, there is the only thing is that living entities, their natural propensity is to take advantage of the weaker, to kill the weaker. But someone who has the consciousness of a devotee will never be able to understand that this is wrong to do so. It is completely natural for the stronger to take advantage of the weaker. But when one realizes the real reason we are here on this planet, when one realizes that in every single living entity, Krishna resides as the Paramatma, that person will never ever be able to kill another living entity. And this is only possible for someone who has that consciousness. And so constantly through the Shastras, we are, oh my gosh, just give me a sec, Mataji. Sorry about that. And so consciously throughout the ages, we are guided towards coming into devotion, understanding why we exist, who we are, what is our relationship with Krishna, what should we do in this world, and what is our ultimate goal. And as Narad Muni, who's a great soul himself, advises Yudhishthira Maharaj that, your uncle and your aunt, they have realized this. They have realized the ultimate goal of life, and they are practicing devotion to reach and to go back to Godhead. And they are surrounded by natural surroundings of food, and they have enough to feed themselves, not just offer prasad and feed themselves. So please do not worry about them. It is natural of you to worry and to care because that is your natural character. But it is the Lord's will at the end of the day. The Lord takes care of everything because the most important thing for the Lord is his devotees, is his creation, and his entire creation, the entire philosophy of the Vedic scriptures, the entire Shastras, and what lies in the core of everything is caring and loving. And the Lord does not leave his living entities astray without providing them or surrounding them with enough love and care to look after themselves. So with that, I conclude my session here today. Please do correct me if I've made any mistakes.
Hare Krishna, Mataji. Thank you so much for this excellent session. As usual, I learn so much when you give a session, and we really, at least I really appreciate, and I'm sure others would do that as well, because we learn so many new things like Suryodhana, I didn't know. And you started with comparing of Dhritarashtra and Yudhishthira, and how you showed how one was compassionate and how to be caring, even if they have wronged you. He was still caring and compassionate. He didn't hold that against his uncle. So, and then the stories of Ranjit Singh was very interesting as well. And more so about Ram Navami. I didn't know about why Navami was such a special day. And again, the compassion of Sri Ram, that he was born at midday so that we don't fast after that. So thank you for this perfect session on a perfect day, remembering the perfect man, the Maryada Purushottam Ram. I open this session to questions and comments if there are any. Hare Krishna. I think we've exhausted our time, so there might not be any questions or comments. In that case, can I request Prashanatma Prabhuji to end this session for us today, please? Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
And welcome to all the assembled devotees. Thank you so much, Panchali Kar Mataji, for giving such a great class. And today is also a special day, so we celebrate the appearance of Sri Ramachandra himself. We see how merciful the Lord is in any of his incarnations. Mataji has given us also a wonderful example on how Krishna refused to wear padukas and had, or rather wanted the cows first to have the padukas before he could go out on them himself. So you can see how kind and merciful the Lord is towards us, and in so many examples. Also the pure devotees, how they are merciful towards us, coming down, even through Srila Prabhupada and the acharyas. So thank you so much, Mataji, for this informative class on this wonderful day. And thank you also to the devotees, but also very merciful, and all those who come together to make these wonderful sessions work every day so that we can learn something. So thank you. I thanks everyone for giving time to this. And I request all the devotees, please let's unmute and thank Mataji and encourage her by chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. Let's sing glorification.
Hare Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare,
Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Hare Hare.
Mancha Prabhupada, Sana Pavani, Vidyo Namo Namo.
Srila Prabhupada ki. Yes, Panchali Mataji ki.
Jai.
Jai.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna and happy Ram Navami to you.
Mataji, Hare
Happy Ram Navami to you too.
Thank you, Mataji.